So this video is going to be a little bit different than the normal vibe that I've been doing for the last couple videos, and that's partially why I chose the series title of this podcast to be Thoughts, because I wanted to be able to speak on any aspect of life, if you will. And so normally I'm oriented towards talking about Christian worldview, Christian doctrine, and all of those different aspects. And I think there will be some of that in this video. But specifically, I want to take my hand today at talking about basically socio-economic current events, some political aspects. I'm going to try to do it from a somewhat objective stance, though I do have my biases. I try to found all of my political commentary on objective truth versus feelings, if you will. And so, what I'm labeling this thought or this conversation as is addressing AI and the socioeconomic collapse of America. Now, that's a big title, but I see a lot online in the last couple days and just in general that America and the normal working class American is struggling. The housing market is at an all-time high, both prices and rates, which is a terrible dynamic. New home buyers are struggling to even be able to afford a home when the market starts at $250,000 to $300,000 for a starter home, and a lot of times even those are not ideal. There is, in my opinion, the idea of 2008 was the initial housing collapse that everyone knows about and the last recession in America. But if you watch the movie The Big Short, there it kind of outlines the whole dynamic on what happened with that, with basically loans and the way that the loan agencies and the banks gave out mortgages in faulty ways and basically built the system on stilts to where at a certain point the whole thing went into default. So at the end of the movie, what happens is basically the American government bailed out the banks and nothing really happened. They just kept the system going. And so from 2008 on, you see basically happy days, everything goes back to normal, et cetera, et cetera. And then COVID hits, and a very similar socioeconomic dynamic happens to where everyone's locked inside, the market hits a huge downturn, et cetera, et cetera. And stimulus checks are sent out and all the different things. Now we find ourselves in 2025. And the residual effects, I would say, of all of that is still hitting and is going to hit hard, even though there have been band-aid fixes by the government, whether it's handing out free money and stimulus checks, whether it was bailing out the banks and the housing collapse of 2008, whether it's just the general apathy and lack of responsibility, I guess you could say, or more so trying to think of how to say this in a way that makes sense. The US government has been in a gridlock of polarity within the last couple decades, at least since, in my opinion, I've come to the realization of American politics. It is very, at least at this point, very far left, far right. One party does one thing, the other party comes in and completely deletes the latter. And it's very manic in its emotions, its mantras, and the society in America is splitting based off of these polarizing and splitting, dividing parties. And so what happens is you have one party that comes in and tries to bolster and build up the economy, and then the next party comes in and basically hands things out for free on the taxpayer dollar, even to countries that aren't our own, and basically bleeds away and throws away all American money as if they have no responsibility. They're spending our dollars in places that they don't have jurisdiction to do. Technically, they do, but it doesn't feel good as an American when your leadership is throwing your money in ways that you disagree with. And so it's all coming, in my opinion, to a point right now because I think the statistics of the labor union just came out in the last day or two, and it is now saying that the job market is not as good as it was, or something to that effect. Basically, there's a lot of unemployment, and also I'm seeing a lot of people online that apply for 1,000 jobs or something to that effect, and they have records to show. And of the 1,000, 800 or so ghost or deny, and then they get a few first round interviews, and of 1,000, they get like 20 offers or something insane. And so compound that with massive inflation from COVID. And again, I would say even residual effects of the Band Aid fix of 2008. Compound that with the fact that the housing market is crazy. Compound that with the fact that we are taxed in every regard. Remember that when America was founded, it was over like the tea tax, the Boston Tea Party, and very, very small taxation from the colonial powers of England, very small taxes, and yet we have sales tax, we have income tax, we have state tax, federal tax. We are taxed on our taxes. We are taxed on our property. We are taxed on everything. And that weight, I feel or see, is starting to crush the psyche, the morale of the American people. All that I see online is TikToks and different videos of people that are struggling to make ends meet, that their funds are insufficient, that they are giving up on paying off their debts, that they can't find jobs, that they can't find houses, that the American dream is dying. And you can look into different articles, different statistics. I'm not going to divulge all that information, but the stats are out there. Now, I think there are moves being made right now with the current administration changing the world stage as far as economic power. And I think that might help. But a lot of people are impatient in their suffering. They are struggling to see the long game on this situation. Though I think it's beneficial overall, the immediate effects are not helping. Gas is still high, grocery is still high, all these things are still happening, and it's a tricky situation. It's a hard situation, and I think it's been a long time coming. I think everyone feels it, even the people that are well off. There are the entrepreneurs, the business owners that their margins are shrinking. Small businesses in America right now are struggling, and yet it frustrates me that you have people complaining about all of these aspects. And yet you look around at all of the franchises, McDonald's, Dunkin', Starbucks, and there's Chick-fil-A, great example. Lines around the building. And so it's a weird dynamic of people complaining about different aspects, and it is true, but also the lack of discipline when times are difficult, that people are unwilling to give up the comforts, to give up the convenience, and they are still flooding these different things that are draining their bank accounts. It's bizarre. It's a very weird time. And I think that unfortunately, the current administration is paying for the sins of the previous, and they're getting a bad rap because we are feeling the effects of COVID, post COVID, previous administration, and yet they step in. Even if it was a different administration, even if it was a different person in office, we would still be feeling these same things because as a nation, economically and societally, it's a slow wave that kind of rolls over, and we feel effects from years past in the present. Now, to make everything even worse, on this already complicated and rather unfortunate tragedy that we are currently experiencing. Add AI to the conversation. Now, I have a lot of thoughts about AI, and I think overall it is a feeling of ambivalence. I think there can be good. I think there are definitely possibilities for bad. I think that AI is a tool. I think it is the same as general technology. I think it's the same as money. I think it's the same as influence. I think it's the same as power. That you can, metaphorically speaking, wield a hammer to get a job done more efficiently, or you can wield a hammer to damage property and others. And I think, metaphorically speaking, all of those different tools of amplification can be used in the same way for both good and bad. But what's happening with AI is you already have a very complicated socioeconomic collapse of America happening as we speak. And I think there is still hope, but it is a tumultuous time to say the least. And then add AI to the conversation to where then there is worry and validity in the idea of the job market shrinking even more because AI is nullifying current positions. Your customer service call centers, your cashiers at whatever franchise, your warehouse workers, your semi drivers, all of these things, all of these positions that employ so many people right now, the general public, are going to be nullified in the very near future because of automation and robotics, going to change the landscape of the career market. And in some ways, I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that technological progression is necessary and it's going to continue to happen. But in the same breath, you have these people that are scared. You have these people that are unsure if they're going to have a job 1 year from now, 10 years from now. The whole horizon is changing in the same way that we didn't realize the power of social media when it first came out. We didn't realize the power of the internet when it first came out. There are some of these things that are created that, with good intentions, maybe, can turn awry very quickly. And probably the scariest thing about AI that was warned to us in stories or shows like The Terminator, like Matrix, some of these different dystopian movies, I, Robot is another one. The scary thing about this is that even though well intentioned, they are created by people that are fundamentally fallen. And these large language models, AI, robotics, all these different things have a programmer. And if that programmer has malevolence, as we all do within them, then they're going to be programmed with a sour disposition. They're going to be programmed to do whatever the master says, no matter how deviated the master is. And so that's probably the scariest part about it. But I think the heart cry of America for a long time has been the the song that was epically viral a couple years ago. I think it was right when COVID first happened or right after, was Rich Men North of Richmond. That politically we feel that we are not supported. We feel that we are helping people around the world while we suffer on the homeland. We feel like we are being taxed to no end. We feel like the greater systems that should be for good are evil, are twisted, are riddled with issues, whether that be revenge seeking, malevolent, power hungry, hateful, pedophilic, all of these nasty things that we're electing these people to be, whether through influence or through a vote, whether through Hollywood or in Washington, D.C., these people are fallen just like the rest of us. And we put them on these pedestals. Unfortunately, a lot of them, their sins are shown to be true. And so I just wanted to throw this out there to see people's response to this. I wanted to dialogue and talk about this because I don't really know what the answer is. It is a really weird time right now in American history to live through. It feels like we are living in historic times every day we wake up. Something new is happening, the news is never ending, and maybe that's part of the plot, maybe that's on purpose, but it's really bizarre. It's really weird, and I think AI is going to complicate it even more. I think it's going to get even weirder moving forward. And I don't know, not that I lack hope, but it's starting to get worrying to me to see just nobody people throwing up TikTok videos and having mental breakdowns and talking about having no money and talking about not starting families because they can't afford it. And the socioeconomic, I say collapse, maybe it's downturn, maybe it's decline, maybe it's loss of hope. Something is happening that you can feel the tides changing. You can feel the hurt and the suffering. And again, my goal with this channel, I think ultimately the hope is in Christ. I think that the hope is in the local church. I think that's where we find hope. As hard times fall upon us, it's going to be tough and it's going to hurt and there's going to be pain. And where do you find resolute in all of that? I would say find a good local church, dig into the scriptures, find knowledge that helps you through the struggle. There's a lot more that I could say about this, but for right now, I'm going to keep it there. Let me know what you think. I think there's more to be said about this. I think I could talk deeper about certain topics, but I just wanted to kind of graze this whole idea and see what the response is. So, all that to say, my advice is hold strong, hold true to what you know, keep bearing the burden of life, and find your hope in Christ and the church.